Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 2 of the Bandwagon Hockey Podcast. We've got our intro music back. Ryan did some techie genius stuff, i.e. we found the audio files in our Google Drive.
That I did from myself.
They were buried approximately 6 weeks ago, or they were saved 6 weeks ago, and we forgot where. So that was kind of the issue with not having an intro for the first episode. But no, so we've got our intro. We're ready to roll. We're going to do some Western Conference talk today. Low-key, I did forget that we did the whole Eastern Conference run-through on Tuesday. So I sort of came in with some topics to cover, like obviously the Boudreau stuff in Vancouver. San Jose trade rumors sort of heating up a little bit in terms of Thibaut Meyer and Erik Karlsson. But we're still going to do the run-through the West to keep it consistent. But we are definitely going to spend a little bit more time on certain teams than others because there's more to talk about with regards to some teams. And, you know, now that we're back from our sort of turning off our brains over Christmas and stuff, we've sort of gotten it back in the loop with hockey. So there's more of the nitty-gritty topics to discuss rather than just going team by team.
Yeah, absolutely. And then like you said, there's a few teams that definitely are a little bit more interesting to talk to or talk on. Sorry, because like we don't watch all of these games, like they're so late at night. So I don't know about you, but like most of the time I watch Western Conference teams. If I do at all, it's when they're playing like the Sens, or it's
an Eastern
earlier game
team,
when they're exactly. So definitely not as educated on the West, but there's some interesting things going on. So.
And so with that being said, I say we sort of just hop right into it, going top to bottom like we did with the East. We started with Boston last time. This time we'll start with Dallas. Currently 28-13-7, having a really nice year so far. Came into the season, I forget where we had them. I was high on them coming into the year, but I thought they'd be more of like a middle-of-the-pack playoff team, like maybe like a 5, 6, or 7 seed, like battling for a top wildcard or like third place in the division sort of thing. But no, they're kind of showing themselves to be one of the powerhouses of the league. Like they're probably not in that top tier of teams with like a Boston, Carolina, Toronto. I would even argue Colorado is still in there, but they're probably in that second tier of teams in terms of like I could see them getting to a Western Conference final, but I don't see them winning a cup. Like they could win a cup, but I just don't see them in that upper echelon of teams that I would bet on to win a Stanley Cup this season. What do you think, Ryan?
Yeah, they're just one of those teams I just continually sleep on. Like they have all the pieces to really make a run, especially now that like Jamie Benn is producing again, Tyler Seguin's getting back to decent numbers, and like obviously the emergence of their young talent as well. So it's kind of been this cool convergence of everything going right for them, and it's so far led to first spot in the West, which does surprise me this late in the season for sure.
Mm-hmm. We've discussed it multiple times before, but their core is just so fascinating to me.
Yeah.
Like Jamie Benn is having one of the best seasons of his career, and that guy's won an Art Ross. But when he won his Art Ross, he only had 87 points when the NHL was in like some sort of weird scoring drought for whatever reason in like the mid 2010s.
Yeah.
But no, he's at 42 points in 48 games. Seguin is at about 2 points every 3 games, 34 and 48. And they've got some depth now. They've got their young guys coming up, Wyatt Johnston, Ty Dellandrea. They traded for Nils Lundqvist. He's played a huge role on that D. And he's been playing with Heiskanen, I think, on the top line, on the top defensive pairing, like Heiskanen on the left, Lundqvist on the right. I think maybe that's more recent. Just looking at his numbers right now, he's under 18 minutes a game. But I do remember seeing that in a highlight package, seeing Lundqvist and Heiskanen playing together, and then obviously. Sorry.
And there's the ageless wonder of Joe Pavelski. Like,
it's unbelievable.
He just keeps going.
He signed an extension over sort of like our Christmas break. He signed a 1-year deal for next season worth $3.5 with $2 million of bonuses. And I'm pretty sure how that works is that he has his like base salary / cap hit of 3.5, and then if he hits on his bonuses, so he gets that money, but then the $2 million cap hit carries into the next season. Is that how that works, Ryan? Do you know?
Sorry, for bonuses?
Yeah, so
Yeah.
Pavelski was given a 1-year deal at 3.5, so that'll be his cap hit next year. And then if he hits those performance bonuses to bump his earnings up to 5.5, the extra $2 million actually carries into the following season.
Yeah, that's exactly it. So if his bonuses carry them over the cap, those overages are taken off their cap next year.
Okay, makes sense. And yeah, obviously he's worth it. What an insane contract. Just like sort of one of the most under the radar player acquisitions in free agency, because he just signed like a dinky, not even a dinky little deal, but it was 3 years at $7 a year when he left San Jose. And it was kind of seen as like a "what are you doing, Dallas" situation because he was old. $7 million a year is a lot.
I thought it was just classic Dallas, adding in an aging guy to an aging core that didn't really look like it was going anywhere. But now he's been the perfect addition to a rebouncing, young, exciting core that is. It's kind of cool to see because they were just kind of a middling team for the longest time.
And what's crazy too about Joe Pavelski, I know we're spending a lot of time on Dallas right now, but Joe Pavelski's at 435 goals and 969 points. So he's going to get to 1,000 points this year, and there's a really good chance that he ends up scoring 500 goals in his career. He probably only needs to play another 2 years after this one to get there, and he's already signed for one of them. So that'd be really cool if he does that. But so Dallas definitely one of the surprise teams this season. But the bones were there, like you could see this happening, and this is sort of looks like what their best case scenario of the season was. Moving on to Winnipeg, another team. I was not expecting them to be in the playoff race, even though they've always had all of this talent, but just have never really seemed to be able to put it together since their Western Conference Finals run in the early days of having Line A.
They were always a team that should have been good because they have just a ridiculous amount of talent. But then they went through an interesting period where they kind of had to rebuild their entire defense. And now that that's settled and they've got what seems to be a good coach in place, it's really worked out well for them.
Well, because they had not that Tyler Myers was anything. Tyler Myers was there, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so they had Tyler Myers there, who was sort of like just a stable for them. Jacob Trouba, obviously, that big trade. And then Dustin Byfuglien sort of just walking away from hockey. All three of those guys left in the span of like not long of a time. And then Josh Morrissey just sort of wasn't really living up to his potential in terms of being whatever he was. I think he was a lottery pick. I know that. I want to say he was even top 10.
And they've always had one of the 13th. Better top 6 forwards in the
Their top 6 is elite.
In my opinion, yeah.
That's never been a factor.
They've always been incredible. So now that they've really figured out their defense with like you said, Morrissey really breaking out this year. DeMello's a good shutdown guy. Pionk, that was a nice little underrated move. I feel like he's always a guy that's never really talked about, but he's consistently putting up good minutes and good production. So it's good to see them bounce back, especially with the talent they have. It would be cool to see them go on a run here.
Yeah, and especially with some of the uncertainty coming up with their core. Like Kyle Connor's signed, I'm not sure how many years he has left, but like Scheifele's up soon. Dubois wants nothing to do with the organization, even though he's playing well and the team's playing well. So it's like there's not as much attention on that right now. He's like fully blown going to be a Montreal Canadian sometime in the next 2 years or so. I believe that's when he'd be able to sign with there. But like Perfetti's like really breaking out. Yeah. He was a 10th overall pick. Like he's jumped into that top 6. So they've got Kyle Connor, Pierre-Luc Dubois, Mark Scheifele, Blake Wheeler, Cole Perfetti, and Nick Ehlers. And that's their top 6, and it's a very good top 6. They were in Ottawa last night, and their top power play unit was Morrissey, Connor, Scheifele, Ehlers, and Dubois, and it was ridiculous how much they were snapping the puck around.
Yeah, that's correct.
It was very impressive. And they're getting Connor Hellebuck in a Vezina caliber season. So sort of when that happens, which seems to be like every year, every 2 or 3 years, Hellebuck has a Vezina caliber season. Yeah. That's usually when the Jets usually end up being like a really nice, solid team. And they're playing according to with 30 wins in 47 games. Moving on, sort of like one rung down, like Dallas and Winnipeg are sort of like steering clear of the rest of that division right now, although I think Colorado's going to make a run. Minnesota just beneath them with 54 points at 25, 16, and 4. They've been in a lot of trade rumors lately, and it's actually shocking to me how much player movement Minnesota has sort of been rumored to be in on, given their cap space situation. Like, it's been floated that, like, I think Dumba's going to move just because he makes $6 million. He's an expiring contract, and he's sort of probably, like, their fourth most important defenseman.
Yeah.
Even though he's been there forever, he's just a guy that's expendable, especially with the cap room that he would provide them. And I think they've been mentioned in Chychrun trade rumors, and Minnesota has lots of prospects that they could offer, as well as their own first-round picks and that Dumba salary. And so Minnesota in a position to make some big moves. Obviously, Kaprizov's doing his thing. He'll have 100 points this year. Zuccarello is awesome. And the goaltending has been solid. I mean, Philip Gustafsson has really stepped up this season. Another typical sort of like Sens deal where they trade away someone and then they break out with another team.
And goalie too. Like the Sens seem to do that so often. Like just trade a goalie who's right on the edge. But like the Gustafsson last year, it looked like he was kind of, I don't know. He was very shaky at the NHL level, so I don't think anyone really saw this coming from him this year. Yeah.
And so when Marc-Andre Fleury's been a bit shaky, which he has this season, he only has a .902 save percentage. Philip Gustafsson in 19 games is 11-7-1 with a .922 save percentage. So just really solid backup goaltending from him. And then they also signed Matt Boldy to a 7x7, which is sort of like also alludes to the which is also what I was alluding to when I said how much player movement they've been in on lately, just with the Dumba, Chychrun rumors, as well as sort of extending their young stud to a big money contract. I thought they'd go bridge to sort of get them through this little cap hell that they're in. But when you get a chance to lock up a guy like Matt Boldy at $7 million, you kind of just got to take it and figure it out after.
Do that. Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, so Minnesota just pretty much ever since Kaprizov's come onto that team, they've become one of the most interesting teams in the league. Fun to watch, fast paced, and
now they have a bunch of other young talent coming up that is really going to make them exciting to watch too. Like Addison on the back end, Boldy, like you mentioned up front, and like Rossi too hasn't even really made his impact on this team. So I'm really
hoping that Marco Rossi can become like a full-time NHLer next season.
Yeah,
it's not going to happen for him this year because
I think that's the plan.
A year and a half of development from COVID and having COVID and the repercussions of that. But what would be your thoughts on including him in a deal for Chychrun? Would you do that?
See, I don't know because I was so high on him before all of his complications, and I'm pretty sure his outlook is still like
still good.
It's still extremely high, but if they're really gonna look to maybe push in the playoffs now, that I guess that's a move you look at making because they have their offensive producers right now, and Rossi would come in as that depth guy, but especially if you're looking at moving out Dumba, then you need somebody else on the back end there. So it would make a lot of sense.
Because it's kind of known that the ask for Chychrun is like 2 firsts and then a prospect. I don't think they're going to get that much. I think they'll get like a first and a good prospect or like 2 firsts, but not all 3. Like if you were Minnesota, would you do Rossi and a first for Chychrun and then have Dumba be like rooted to a third team with the assets coming in, sort of?
Without knowing their situation in too much detail, I personally wouldn't. Like Rossi and a first is a lot of value to me anyway.
Would you do Rossi in a second?
I would think about that for sure.
Okay. I'd be interested to see what they get for
the first this year anyways is very valuable.
Yeah, but Minnesota's not going to be in those sweepstakes for the lottery
No, but it's still a really deep draft.
I've read it's a really top heavy draft.
Oh, okay. But like the first round, regardless, I think is going to be pretty good talent.
I think if you're a team that's like in the playoffs which Minnesota should be, and you don't really have a chance at getting into the top 10 for a draft pick, and which means you have even less of a chance of getting into the top 4 for a draft pick, I think you trade it. But especially for Chychrun, who would be on his $4.6 million cap hit throughout the duration of this dead cap penalty.
I'd have to look at their long-term outlook a little bit more, but just from pure off the top of my head, I think it's a little too much. But
okay,
I'd like to see what happens doing
there.
It too.
That'll be interesting. I just hope Chychrun gets traded. I'm so sick of talking about it. And
please get him.
Okay, let's move on to Colorado. Sort of like sputtering along now, 45 games into the season. It's no longer early, and this team sort of needs to get going. And they're showing signs of getting healthy. McKinnon's back. I'm not sure what's up with Gabe Landeskog. He's on my fantasy team and hasn't played yet this year. I don't know if he's close. I don't know anything about the situation. I'm just going to bring up his player page right here and see if there have been any sort of updates on him. So he's going to start skating after the All-Star break. So he's not close because the All-Star break's not for another – do you know when the All-Star break is?
It's early February, I think.
Okay, so he's a week or two at least away from just skating. So, and that's a knee injury he's coming off of. So, yeah, so we'll see what happens with him. But they're starting to get their guys back. Like Nichushkin, I read, is close. Byram I read is skating. And this team's probably going to take off once that happens.
Yeah.
My official bold prediction is that they end up winning the division. They are currently 10 points back of Dallas with 3 games in hand. And they've been sort of steamrolling teams the past couple weeks. They've won 5 in a row, and those games have been, like, not terribly close. Like, they won in a shootout last night, but before that they had won 4-1, 4-1, 6-3, and 7-0.
Yeah.
So, I think Colorado's about to shoot off like a freaking missile right now, and I'm excited to see it because this team should be competing for another Stanley Cup, not battling for a playoff spot.
No, they're totally going to make the playoffs, and I could 100% see that prediction of yours coming true. While they've been going through all these injuries, their absolute workhorse has been Rantanen. He's carried this team while everyone's been out. 58 points in 45 games. The guy has been unstoppable. 32 goals. So
if the NHL actually followed the definition of the Hart Trophy, Rantanen should probably get like a spot in the top 3 or top 5. If he doesn't already have one, I'm not sure. I actually meant to ask you earlier if you had to vote on your Hart Trophy right now, would you include Jason Robertson in the top 3?
I think I do. Yeah. I have to look a little bit more at the league leaders just because I haven't looked at that off the top of my head too much recently. But he's 4th in league standings. I don't think anyone would really have Dallas where they are right now. So as of this point, I think I'd have them up there for sure.
I think my top 5 would be McDavid, not in any order. McDavid, Tage Thompson, Robertson, Pasternak, and Rantanen. Those would probably be my top 5 Hart candidates.
Yeah, that sounds about right off the top of the head.
And it kind of sounds like sort of like a cop-out answer because 5 of those are in the top 9 in points, but that's kind of how it goes. If you get a lot of points, you're going to be at the top of the Hart race. But so Rantanen's sort of been carrying the team, and now that McKinnon's back, they're gonna shoot off like a missile. Okay, let's move on.
And just quickly, Cale Makar is doing Cale Makar things again. Isn't
he playing almost 28 minutes a night right now?
Yeah, he's injured now too. So it'll be interesting to see how they survive through this too. I'm not sure how long he's supposed to be out, but
yeah. Okay, let's move on to Nashville. One of the most disappointing teams of the season, I'd say, so far. After they brought everyone back,
I agree.
They brought in Niederreiter. They brought back Forsberg. Did they make a big trade in the offseason? I don't think they did. For some reason. No. Oh, yeah, they brought in McDonough.
Yeah.
I forgot about that one. You say Saros has really turned his season around. He's back at a 919 save percentage. He was down below 910 for the longest time. But the law of large numbers has sort of come back to benefit him. So he's been making lots of saves lately, sort of bailing his team out because Nashville's just not a very good team. I mean, they're above fake 500, but they've lost more games than they've won. They got some career years last year out of guys like Roman Josi and Matt Duchene, who are at the top end of their roster that they're just not getting this year.
And
what did Duchesne score last year? 42 goals? 40 goals?
What did Tanner Jeannot put up last year? Didn't he have a crazy year?
He did have a crazy year.
Didn't he have 20 goals or something? Or close
he had 24 goals and 17 assists last year, and had he's 300 hits. 300 hits. So he was a killer.
3 goals, 8 points, 11 points. In 46 games. That one's tough.
So I drafted him in fantasy this year, thinking that he was going to be a cheat code because he would score 20-plus goals and rack up 5 hits a night.
You thought he was going to be the next Brady.
Like Brady light, just less points, but just
in terms of fantasy, yeah.
Yeah. And he just isn't doing it. He just wasn't doing it, so I had to finally drop him, and he hasn't even broken out since I dropped him, and just not there.
Just going up and down their player stats, everything is underwhelming.
It's just such an uninspiring team.
39 points in 46 games leads their team. Come on.
In today's NHL, you got to have guys above a point a game if you want to win.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know what this team does either, because again, they brought back Forsberg on an 8-year deal. Yossi's locked up, Duchesne's locked up, Johansson's locked up. These guys aren't going anywhere, and they all make a lot of money, and they're all on the wrong side of 27, 28 years old. They're not a young team, so it's kind of a weird spot that they're in. And they don't have any rentals to sell. They're all guys that are signed with term. So
and their young talent isn't producing at all. Cody Glass has 16 points in 36 games. Dante Fabro, I know he's a defenseman, but he's only got 8 points in 43 games. It wasn't that guy touted as one of the better.
He played for Team Canada. He was
one of the better defensive prospects in the game at one point.
And I think he's solid. He's just not a point producer. But
what are they doing with their prospects? They just let Tolvanen go too?
Yeah, that was wild. But didn't Askarov make his debut the other day?
Yeah, I did see that headline, but I forgot to follow up on it.
Yeah, I think he saved I think he gave up 4 goals on 35 shots or something. Sort of not an impressive but not a disappointing debut for a goalie. Honestly, that might be the saving grace for Nashville, is that they have a nice goalie prospect coming up. So if it came to push comes to shove, they could trade Saros in a year or two once his contract gets close, because he's signed to a sweetheart deal, $5 million a year. He's one of the best goalies in the league. But yeah, I don't know. Weird team. Not a lot to get excited about. I was really excited about Nashville coming into this year. I thought they'd be really good. They're just not really it. They'll fight for a playoff spot, but if they get in, they'll be a first-round exit. And I don't know. It's not looking like they'll get in. So, all right, let's move on. St. Louis, definitely a letdown of a season for them. There's even rumblings that they'll be a seller at the deadline with pending UFAs, such as Ryan O'Reilly and who's the other one? Tarasenko becoming UFAs after the season. Tarasenko's been wanting out for 2 years now, so I wonder if that'll happen.
I think this team should sell so hard.
Yeah, this team should
get rid
tank.
of all of that money you can, grab a nice pick, and just try to do the Dallas. Come back with your wicked young talent and try to just rebuild around that. Get rid of all the salary you can now.
Yeah. It's not even Dallas-esque though, because their core is they've got a core. Jordan Kyrie's a good player. Robert Thomas is a good player.
That's what I'm saying. You already have this good young base. I guess it's not really Dallas-esque. You're right, but what I meant.
But I see what you're saying.
You already have this young base. It looks like you're kind of having an off year, and now you have an opportunity to offload aging talent on bigger contracts that it looks like you're still going to get assets for. Mm-hmm. And this off year happens to come in one of the more top heavy drafts in recent years. So if you can grab a top 10 pick and get rid of that money, I know it's not what their expectations were, but I consider that a success if they can bounce back next year.
At some point, you've got to just cut your losses on a season, right?
Yeah.
I know it's not what they were expecting to happen this year, but it's what's happening this year. So you just gotta. Sorry, I'm just trying to find how much Braden Shen is making and for how much longer. So he's making $6.5 per year, and he has Oh my God, he's got 5 years left. Okay, so he's not going to get traded because nobody's going to want that contract.
No.
Although if there honestly was a year to do it, he's having a good season. He's got 35 points this season.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Like NHL teams have to start treating cap space as an asset. Like, I feel like this is a situation where if a team calls on
They should have been
Shen,
doing it for the past 3 years. Yeah.
Pardon?
No, they should have been viewing it as an asset for at least the last 3 years.
And I don't know if you've noticed, but only the best teams do. Like the worst teams in the league are teams that don't treat cap space as an asset. Like Braden Shen. Let's say a team calls the Blues on Braden Shen. Like, I guarantee you the way that phone call will go is that the Blues are asking for a first-round pick or, a prospect or something for Braden Shen.
Yeah.
Because this season, he has 35 points in 47 games.
Yeah.
But that production this season is fully offset and then some by the fact that he has 5 years at 6.5 left on his contract and he's 31 years old.
Yeah.
If you say, hey, team, take this guy for us, and, you can have him. Like, that's what Vegas did with Pacioretty. You can have him because we need to fit Eichel. You can have Braden Shen because we're trying to rebuild. That's what this St. Louis team needs to do. That's what a team like Nashville needs to do with a guy like Ryan Johansson. You know what I mean? Is that making sense?
It makes complete sense. I'm all
Justin
for
Falk.
doing that.
Justin Falk's another guy that they need to do that with. Torrey Krug. They've got a lot of guys on this team that are not worthy of their sort of between $5 and $7 million salaries.
This was my stance on San Jose going into the year, and we'll get to San Jose at some point.
Yeah.
But it's just you are where you are. It's not a great position, but you're in a position now where you can move out money and start focusing on the future. You just have to accept it. And this is not where the Blues thought they were going to be, like the Sharks, but it's where they are, and you need to take it how it is.
Mm-hmm. Regardless of it, unless they re-sign Ryan O'Reilly or Vladimir Tarasenko, which isn't going to happen, that's $14 million in cap space.
Yeah.
That's $14 million of cap space that they're going to have, which is completely offset by the fact that Kyrou and Thomas's extensions kick in next year. So they're both going to have approximately $5.5 million increases. So you're looking at about $4 million freeing up right there. If you can make another trade or two, don't touch Buchnevich, but you can trade a Brandon Saad, who for some reason is making $4.5 million. Braden Shen, who's making $6.5. Just get rid of one or two of those guys that are making middling money.
Yeah.
They signed Colton Parayko, another one, 8 years at $6.5 million. Something about that $6.5 million number with the Blues. I don't know what it is. Jordan Binnington, another one, 6 years, $6 million with 5 years left. They just have too much money tied up in sort of veterans that aren't worth it. But they have good young players on their team, and they need to tank the rest of the season to try to get into that lottery and see if they can snag a draft pick and collect some assets and come back next season. All right, so that was the Blues. Let's move on to the Arizona Coyotes, who are, I don't want to say they're playing themselves out of the Bedard sweepstakes, but they're better than they wanted to be. We'll say that. They've been shit lately. They're 1-9 in their last 10. I'm just now realizing that as I said that introduction on the Coyotes, because that was the story for a while, was that they were playing a little bit too well to be in that sort of guaranteed top 3, top 4 pick range, because you can drop 2 spots in the lottery.
Do you have something open that would say their home record or no?
Hold up.
If not, it's not that big of a deal. But I know they were going on a wicked roll at Mullet Arena.
Yeah, it's so really good. I don't, but I know that their home record is extremely impressive.
Yeah, I know at some point their last 10 games at home, it was I'm pretty sure it was 7-2-1 or something like that.
I'm seeing if I can find it. I don't think, for whatever...
They're just a funny team. They have some guys who you'd still expect to produce, and they are, but then their middling guys are just... I don't know. They're top of the talent and bottom of talent is so egregiously big.
It's
the
hilarious.
Gap in between, it's hilarious.
So like we're in agreement that they should trade Tricker, and if you were Arizona,
Yeah.
like I would fire Kirill Vamelka into the Sun as well. Like you could get a haul for him.
How old is he?
He's like 27 or 28. Like he's not old, but he's also only been in the league a year or two, so he's sort of looked at as a younger guy.
He's 26, so yeah, I would still trade him. Yeah,
I would trade him. Like he's winning them games. Like he's playing well.
They re-signed Krause, right? So he's not going anywhere.
Would you trade Clayton Keller? He's got like 6 years left, 5 years left.
Probably not. Like he's 24. I don't know. That one's right on the edge, but I probably wouldn't. Like you got to keep somebody.
Yeah, he's like their identity guy at this point.
Yeah,
it's like you got to have a guy to send to the All-Star game, and it's him.
Yeah.
No, but like Shane Gostisbehere.
Yeah. Oh, Shane Gostisbehere, get him out of there. Yeah.
He's going to be traded, and he's having a really nice resurgent season. Chikrin should get traded. Like this team, realistically, should have nobody left in like 2 weeks. Like these guys have guys. This team has guys to trade. Like they should trade realistically. Kirill Vamelka, Shane Gostisbehere, Jacob Chikrin. None of those guys should be Arizona Coyotes after the trade deadline.
No, and anybody else who is on an expiring contract, bye-bye.
Yeah. And the reason is a team like the Chicago Blackhawks is going to be doing that at the deadline. They're going to fire everyone into the sun and be trying to lose as many games as possible. And it's basically a race between those two teams, Columbus and Anaheim, to try to get last or second last so that you guarantee yourself a spot in the top 3 or 4 of the draft because you can only drop 2 spots.
What is Nick Schmaltz's contract and why is he still there?
Oh, it's a lot. It's a lot. I think they signed him long term. Let me check.
Did they do that recently?
$5.5 million a year.
They should have traded him. Like he is a good producer, middle of the lineup producer that I feel like they could have gotten a crap ton for. So if they did that recently, I feel like that's a miss.
I think it's 5.85 a year with 3 years left after this season. And if I'm not mistaken, I don't know if you can maybe verify this after I say it. I think he was sort of the asset that had Arizona take Nick Hjalmarsson from the Blackhawks when the Blackhawks were trying to shed salary. I think he came over with Nick Hjalmarsson.
Yeah, I think you're right because I'm seeing here that he's a first-round pick of the Blackhawks, so that makes sense.
He was definitely with the Blackhawks, but I think he was a part of the Nick Hjalmarsson cap dump trade. He was like the kicker asset that Arizona got to take on.
Anyways, I think he's whenever I see his name, I just think how I was at the game where he put up 7 points against the Ottawa Senators. So that's
all right. Well, so we'll move on to the Chicago Blackhawks. They're in a very similar spot. Like I mentioned, it's a 4-team race to the very bottom. Chicago's known that since the start. They've won 3 in a row. Actually, they're 6-4 in their last 10. They need to get rid of everybody. Yeah. Max Domi should be gone. Patrick Kane should be gone. Jonathan Toews should be gone. Obviously, Kane and Toews, it's a different story. Franchise icons with no move clauses. Mm-hmm. Neither guy has played particularly well. I mean, Jonathan Toews, like the standard we have set for Toews is a lot lower than Kane at this point in their careers. But Patrick Kane only has 30 points this season. Like it's almost gotten to a point where he's not even. This is going to sound bad, but he's not really at this point in his career or this season. I think he's dealing with injuries. He's not that big difference maker that he was a couple of years ago.
Yeah, I don't know if you've been following with podcasts or anything like that recently, but. Like I don't know how recently the updates have come, but he's still playing games. But I know Elliot Friedman was talking at some point how there's a very real possibility that Kane could get shut down because he's dealing with something, and maybe they just revisit this next year and sign him to a 1-year extension, which was a really interesting thought.
I remember hearing that too. Shut him down for the year so that he doesn't ruin the tank, so that he gets healthy and restores his value for next year after signing a 1-year deal. And realistically, if you sign him on that 1-year deal, it'd be at a lot less than 10.5, so he'd be a lot easier to trade, which would make his value also go up.
And it gives him more time to kind of come to grips with this, because from all accounts, it kind of seems like he's struggling with it.
With the idea of leaving?
With the idea that it's ending, yeah.
Which is kind of like he's had time to sort of prepare for this.
Yeah, but I don't know.
Chicago knew they were going to be bad.
It seems like Kane and Taves are making this a lot more emotional than I thought it was going to be.
Agreed. Yeah, I agree. Especially because they've been bad for a while now. Like this isn't some out of nowhere tank. Like they've been middling / bad for 3 or 4 years now.
I get you won 3 cups, but like that was a long time ago. It's time for everybody to move on for the best. Like
yeah, like we're talking about they won those cups when they were like in their how old are they now? They're 34. They won those cups when they were like 27.
And like their
third cup they won when they were like 27.
I don't know the numbers off the top of my head, but the only reason that kind of makes sense is I think Kane is still chasing Mikita for the all-time record for Chicago Blackhawks points, if I'm not wrong.
I've heard that too.
So that one makes a little bit of sense, but like I don't know. It's time to move on. Let's hurry this along.
Okay, we'll move on to the Pacific Division now. We're taking a little bit longer than we thought, maybe. Vegas, sort of back to normal after a weird year last year. At 29-16-2. Jack Eichel's at a point a game. Probably a little bit less than I was honestly expecting from him this year.
I'm just
Chandler Stevenson.
I'm just looking at their player stats, and Chandler Stevenson is leading them in points.
Yeah. It's hilarious. But this team, like, they're a very deep team. Which is shocking considering the moves that they've made in recent years. Like, they have so many contributors.
Yeah.
He's very
always
impressive.
been under the radar.
Who?
Chandler Stevenson.
He's
always been a little bit under the radar, but I did not expect to open that page and see him leading the team. That's funny.
And I think he's making less than $3 million. Like, I think he's at 2 3/4.
It's such a value.
I want to see how many years he has left.
But their major concern now is that Stone is hurt once again with a back injury. That is
he
not
hurt again?
Good. Yeah, he's week to week with another back injury. Like, this guy, it might become
it already is.
Our money situation sooner rather than later.
Oh. I almost think they need to start, like, load managing this guy. Like, go full Kawhi with Mark Stone. Like, if he honestly, like,
back injuries, it could be over very
It's always
soon.
his back, though. Like, it's always his back.
Yeah.
Like, you need to start managing this dude. Like, if you're playing a back-to-back, he's not playing both games. If you're playing 3 games in 4 nights, he plays one of those. Like, like this guy should be playing 2 games a week maximum. And I know that's not how hockey players are built, but, like, making $9.5 million and he's your captain. Like, you've got to manage this guy better. He should not be playing more than 60 games in a season if this, like, I don't, like, that's what I would do. That's my NBA brain talking, but I don't know. This team just keeps chugging away despite the injuries, despite whatever, all the player losses they've had in the last few years. Like, they just keep chugging along. Logan Thompson.
Logan Thompson having a good year.
Kind of, it's wild. I don't know. It's weird, though. Like, they're not in on the big names. Like, you'd think they'd be sort of in on the Erik Karlsson stuff, like the Timo Meier stuff, the Patrick Kane, like all those. Like, nobody's hearing Vegas in terms of the big trades coming up. So
doesn't that scare you? Like, just
it
out
does
of nowhere,
scare. It does, because they will. They're going to get someone.
Patrick Kane.
It'll be like Mark Stone placed on LTIR, and then they'll go nab Patrick Kane at like $1 million retained, and it'll be for like a second-round pick. Something like that. Okay, moving on to the other expansion team, Seattle.
Just pause for 1 second. As if Vegas and Seattle are just like leading this division.
Oh, it's so funny.
It's hilarious.
It's so funny. So the Seattle Kraken, they're a sick team, dude. Yeah. They're a sick team. Vince Dunn's a free agent at the end of the year. Yeah, Matty Beniers, unreal. Andre Burakovsky, massive free agent pickup for them. Vince Dunn, 34 points in 46 games, playing 23 minutes and 50 seconds a night. He's going to get a big payday this offseason. And I remember Elliot Friedman on 32 Thoughts saying that they've sort of tabled discussions knowing that both want to sort of keep this partnership going, but they'd rather just talk about it in the offseason. Like, he might get more than $6 million a year just based off of his production. Jared McCann could score 40 goals this year.
This
which
team
is crazy.
Is so balanced. Like they have nobody over 40 points, but they have like I don't know
how many guys above 20.
You want me to count it?
Count
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. 13 guys.
That's
with
insane.
At least 20 points.
And one of them is Adam Larson.
Yeah, that's absurd.
Like, what? How does Adam Larson have 20 points in 46 games? What's his career high? He is the most shutdown defenseman of all time. Like, his career high in a season is 25 points. Like, he's going to crush that this year.
Can we talk about how Martin Jones is 22, 6, and 3 for them? Yeah. With an 894.
894!
Like, how is this team doing as well as they are?
They should go get Vejmelka.
They
should go get Vejmelka.
Like, don't they still have a bunch of cap space because they took nobody in the expansion draft?
Who's their GM?
No.
Ron Francis?
Yeah, Ron Francis, right?
Hey, Ron, go get Karel Vejmelka. You have every draft pick in existence, and you have so much cap space because you decided to suck in the first year to conserve your cap space.
Or did they spend it all this offseason? I can't remember how much they have left.
I'm checking right now. Oh, what? They're at the cap.
Okay, so
they're using LTIR? What? How are they using LTIR? What did they do?
They brought in Bjorkstrand. They brought in
Burakovsky. They signed McCann $5 million a year.
Yeah.
They brought in Alexander Wenberg. They didn't have him before. Okay, so that's where their money went.
Tolvanen, is he making anything of?
He makes 1.5.
Okay, so that's something.
That's not a lot. Okay, so they don't have cap space. I definitely thought they did. But that's like that shouldn't matter. Vejmelka makes under $3 million a year. Like you just send Chris Driedger to Arizona.
Yeah, where is he right now? Is he hurt?
He's injured. He's been hurt all year. He makes 3.5.
Okay, yeah.
Or pay a little extra and see if Arizona will take on Philip Grubauer. Can you imagine that?
See if anybody will take Martin Jones. What's his contract?
No, keep Martin Jones. He's been your rock this year.
He's Martin Jones, and he's still under a 900 save percentage.
Yeah, but he's playing better than Grubauer. You got to keep one of them. And he makes less money and is playing better.
I guess.
That's insane. 22, 6, and
trade
3
one of those goalies, I guess, is the...
No, it's Grubauer, dude. You trade Grubauer if you can.
Yeah, well, I don't think they can.
No one's taking him. Yeah. I would do Driedger. I would trade Driedger and like a first-round pick for Vejmelka if that's something they would do.
Yeah, that makes the most sense.
Okay, let's go to Edmonton. They've won 6 in a row. McDavid's doing McDavid things. Zach Hyman's on pace for like 40 goals and 90 points or something. Like
if you want a payday and you're a middle six forward,
Ryan,
if the Edmonton Oilers are offering you a contract,
take it.
Go.
Take a 1-year deal. Just go. Ryan Nugent-Hopkins could honestly put up 100 points this year if he gets hot.
He's been outside of Leon Draisaitl. Nugent-Hopkins has been my best player on fantasy this year.
It's ridiculous. He needs 43 points in his last 34 games to have 100 points, and he could literally do that. It's insane. And you know how we just discussed how Seattle has 13 players with more than 20 points?
Yeah.
Here's what the opposite of that is. They have one guy who's 5 minutes away from being at 100 points halfway through the season. McDavid's got 88 and 48. Draisaitl's at 73. Nugent-Hopkins at 57. Hyman at 56. Tyson Barrie at 32. And then everyone else at the team is at 22 points or less.
Also, we were not talking enough about how McDavid could have done 50 and 50. Like, the actual 50 and 50. But he's
not that close to it.
I mean, he's 40 and 48.
That's not.
I feel like nobody was.
50.
Nobody was even discussing it 10 or 15 games ago, though. I don't know. I feel like that should have been.
Yeah, because it wasn't going to happen. You need to be closer than 8 goals below a goal a game to be sort of that being in the discussion.
I don't know. The guy can put up 2-3 goals any game he wants.
If he had 34 goals in 36 games, I think people would have been talking about it.
Yeah,
but he didn't.
I suppose, but 40 and 48 is absurd.
It is absurd. He's going to score 60 this year.
Yeah.
And they have 4 players that are above 9 goals this season. They only have 4 players in double-digit goals, and they're all at above 22 goals.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous how top-heavy this team is. It's actually a joke how much of top-heavy this team is. Okay, honestly, there should be a disclaimer in here. Evander Kane's missed most of the year. He's got 13 points in 17 games. If he was healthy, he would probably be at around 50 points as well. So, but
Puljujärvi and Yamamoto have been disappointing as well.
Yeah, but that's nothing new for this team.
Yeah.
And Jack Campbell is an absolute pumpkin of a contract. Let's move on to the Los Angeles Kings, another team that I think should go and get Karel Vejmelka. Quite honestly, I think this team should try to go get Vejmelka and Chychrun in one deal.
I saw somebody suggest Talbot plus for one of their defensemen. How do you feel about that?
I would do that. I don't know.
Do you think it makes sense for them though? Like Talbot,
no,
sucky poo-poo.
Not for LA. Their right-handed defensemen are so valuable.
That's what I was getting at. That's what I was trying to get your opinion on. Was like, do you think that Talbot has enough value to be a centerpiece in one of those trades? Oh God, no. I think if Cam Talbot gets traded, it's for like a 5th rounder. Really? Yeah, like 4th rounder, 5th rounder. Like that's a mid-round asset. What's his save percentage? Like 900, and he's 35. I don't want to get in on.
Okay, we're not talking Ottawa, but
that was just something I saw quickly.
Yeah, I don't think that's anywhere close to getting it done. I mean, obviously it depends on who the defenseman is, but I mean, I don't think that gets it done.
But they do need a goalie, and that's about it. Their team is kind of nasty with it.
Okay, let me throw something. Let me throw some shit at the wall. So Arizona, I'm doing another Arizona trade. Karel Vejmelka and Jacob Chychrun in the same trade. If you are Mr. Rob Blake, do you include one Quinton Byfield in that trade?
Probably.
Like, okay, Byfield.
Like how much?
Let's say.
How much longer is Kopitar and Danault there?
Danault? I think they're both. I think Kopitar's got 2 years left. Like Kopitar's not there. Like Kopitar's gonna be there till he retires. He's only on his $10 million deal for another year or two, I believe. And then Danault, I think, just signed a 6-year deal before last year.
I don't think I do Byfield, but like they have so many other prospects, and if you're bringing in another defenseman, you can trade one of the $5 billion you have here. Maybe two.
Here's a different idea. You know how it's been discussed for a while now that LA needs to trade a right-handed defenseman?
Yeah.
The reasoning for that is because they have Brandt Clark coming up, and he's going to need a spot.
3 others.
And
I can't remember their names right now, but
would you trade Brandt Clark in a deal for Chychrun and Vejmelka? Because I would.
I've thought about this.
Because Arizona's not going to want one of LA's mid-20s right-handed defensemen.
See, I would probably consider that. Just because they already have so many defensemen, I would think about it for sure. And their window, it's coming now. It's not.
It's right now. The prospects aren't ready yet.
Yeah.
But they've gone and done other things to keep this, to keep them going and to make it competitive with Danault, or not with Danault, with Doughty and Kopitar.
What do you think Turcotte's value could be?
Nothing. You
think it's nothing?
I think he has the value of a 3rd-round pick right now. He's like Elias Anderson situation.
Yeah.
Remember Elias Anderson?
They're big. Yeah. They're some of bigger prospects have just not hit.
That's why they need to push their chips in and stop waiting, because these guys aren't hitting the way that everyone thought they would. Just to go back to those contracts, Kopitar has 1 year left next year at $10 million, and Philip Danault has 4 years left after this year.
Okay, I'm not trading Byfield then.
Okay, so you're keeping Byfield.
Yeah.
I wouldn't trade anything else if they asked for Byfield. If it was Byfield or no deal, I'm doing Byfield and nothing else for those 2 players. Assuming the cap works out. Obviously you'd have to do some salary shit, whatever.
Yeah.
but in a vacuum, like ignoring the cap, I'm doing Byfield for both players straight up.
And we're spending way too much time on this, but I don't think Arizona does that because they're already stacked at center. But
you can always have more centers.
Yeah, I guess.
But yeah.
Anyways,
and I don't know. I think there's a match there that I'd like to see that. Sorry, this is kind of like we said we would spend time on teams. Okay, let's move on.
I just think it's funny that we're already at 50 minutes on the West when we thought it was going to be way under the East.
Yeah, just because stuff has happened this week. Anyway, okay, I don't want to spend much time on Calgary. I don't care about the Calgary Flames.
Neither do I.
Is this an unpopular take? I just do not care about the Calgary Flames. They are such an underwhelming team at this point after having such a hype offseason.
Yeah.
That Jonathan Huberdeau contract is going to be so bad for them. So bad.
Yeah, it's looking tough. Nothing
He's
about
only got
this
32
team,
points this season.
Nothing about this team excites me. And, they have the most mid, youth coming up too. Peltier just played his first NHL game.
Daryl Sutter's
I know you want to talk about this too.
Yeah. What is that?
Yeah, I don't know.
Go away, you freaking dinosaur. Your top prospect makes his NHL debut. You throw him 6 minutes as a straight up middle finger. And then when a reporter asks what you thought of the player, you ask him what his jersey number is and then read off his stat line. Yeah. Get out of here. Peltier is going to be with the Flames longer than you are. Grow, I don't know. That shit bothers me. I hate that culture.
Yeah.
Old head, fucking boomer culture.
Yeah, I'm not the biggest fan of his either.
But yeah, Calgary, deep team. A lot of guys above 20 points, just like Seattle, but just...
Yeah.
I don't know. The top end talent theoretically was there coming into the year. It just hasn't performed. Huberdeau way below expectations. Kadri's been solid, but still, Toffoli's been right where he's kind of honestly, I would argue Toffoli's been better than expected.
Yeah.
And Elias Lindholm, has had a good season. I mean, he's not going to score 40 goals like he did last year, but I mean,
Markstrom is having a meh season.
No, he's having a bad season.
Yeah.
95.
Yeah, it's a bad season. I was going to be nice, but...
And also, Uyghur, tough season too. Uyghur's not been good at all.
They did sign him, right? Or did
they not? $50 million for 8 years.
Oh, boy.
So just to make things clear, they've got Jacob Markstrom, Elias Lindholm, Tyler Toffoli, Nazem Kadri, Jonathan Huberdeau, and Mackenzie Uyghur. All of those guys are signed at 5.5 or more, 6 or more, something like that. And they're all late 20s, early 30s. It's not going to be a good future for Calgary. It's not looking good. Okay, Vancouver, dumpster fire. They're going to get into the Bedard sweepstakes here shortly. Yep. They're going to trade everyone. Horvat's gone. They're going to probably look to trade JT Miller. Brock Besser might as well start packing his bags. And
I've heard Kuzmenko too.
I think they want to try to get him signed, but Kuzmenko's got point of game. He's gonna get a lot of money. That's a Kaprizov situation.
Yeah, no, he's a great player, but if I'm them, bye-bye.
Trade him.
Bye-bye.
But they won't because it's the Canucks, and they try to keep players that don't benefit their timeline.
Yeah.
This team's going to bottom out extremely soon. Demko's had a really bad season. Their only sort of player that's performing properly is Elias Pettersson and Quinn Hughes. But that's expected. Those are their guys. It's gonna get ugly out west.
Also, I saw a quote that said, "Nobody is safe, basically, except for Pettersson." How much fun would it be? I know it doesn't really make sense for the Devils to do, but how much fun would it be for the Devils to make a run at Quinn Hughes?
I don't care. Do it. I don't care if it doesn't make sense. Just do it.
You have to do it.
It'd be so fun.
You have to do it. Just try. Maybe Holtz or something.
I don't know. Everybody.
Try.
Everybody except for Luke or Jack Hughes. Trade them.
Getting all three on the team. Could you imagine? That would be so
It's
electric.
funny though because Quinn Hughes would come in and Quinn Hughes would come in and serve the exact same role that Luke Hughes is expected to fill once he gets to the show.
Yeah, and he would probably based off projections, Quinn Hughes would probably be the third most important out of those three on the team.
Oh, 100. Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. It'd be so fun. Yeah, that team's a dumpster fire. Also, hilarious that they hired Rick Tocchet. Like, what are you doing? It's a freaking merry-go-round. 40 coaches, 32 jobs. Once one's fired, you pick from the 8 that are available and working in the media. Like, that's literally just how it works.
Like, I'm seeing people already hire Boudreau to Ottawa next season. I'm like, can we just slow down here for a second? We don't need, like, I understand all these coaches are good enough to get new jobs, but, like, we don't have to just automatically assume they're getting the next job. Like you said, we don't need the same 40 coaches for 32 positions.
Yeah.
It's annoying.
Crazy. It's actually crazy. Like,
it's annoying.
I don't know. And like, why hire a Rick Tocchet? Like, why not just hire him in the offseason to give him a fresh start? Like, I don't know. I don't get it. It's rushed. Yeah. They did the same thing with Boudreau. They fired whoever the last guy was before Boudreau. Yeah. Hired Boudreau mid-season, made a playoff run, and now he's gone this. Like, it's the exact same thing. I don't know. It's weird.
Sharks.
Okay, we're gonna spend less time on them than I wanted to. I wanted this to be one of the teams that we really paused on and talked about, but we're closing in on an hour here. They suck. They're very bad. Erik Karlsson's going to have 100 points this season.
Erik Karlsson.
And this is a situation. So I read an article this morning. It was a Pierre LeBrun article about Erik Karlsson and like his potential trade and stuff. Mm-hmm. He thinks that the Mike Greer ask of like 3 first-round picks is a complete bluff.
Probably,
He thinks that San Jose is basically just going to take what they can get for Erik Karlsson, so long as they don't have to retain enough money.
Yeah, honestly. Like the goal for them going into this season should have been, can we get rid of him? And if the answer is yes, do it for as little as you have to give up and as little as you have to keep in terms of salary. Yeah. And now it's very realistic that they can do that without having to give up anything and actually get a very good return. So them maximize the shit out of this. Like, get a bidding war going.
The fact that they were going to have to retain salary was sort of baked into the pie. Like, nobody was going to be able to bring on $11.5 million. But the fact that they're at a point where it's not going to have to be 50% to get it done, and they're going to get assets if they do it, is complete gravy. And if they don't capitalize on that, it'd be an all-time, like, what's the word?
All-time miss.
All-time miss. Like, they got to just take the assets. If you can get a first-round pick and only have to retain, like, $2 million a year, like, you do that.
Erik Karlsson having this season for them is the biggest blessing they could have asked for. Yeah. Like, it's an out of this contract and an opportunity to recoup some of the, like, crazy futures you gave up to get him.
Yeah. It doesn't almost cancel, like, it doesn't cancel out the fact that what they traded for Erik Karlsson, but it makes it a lot better. Much better.
It makes their situation
it gives them the chance to start
10 times. Yeah, it makes their situation 10 times better than it was coming into this season. Like, that was a terrible contract that they were going to have to pay assets to get rid of, and that was the right call. Yeah. But now they're going to get what seems to be a decent asset, if not multiple back.
And this isn't even mentioning what they're going to get for Timo Meier, who's going to be the trade, like the rental of all rentals. Like, how many times does a 26-year-old 40-goal scorer power forward come onto the market as a rental? And he's only going to be an RFA at the end of the year. Like, he's not even a UFA after the season. So team's going to acquire him and like have his rights for next year.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I have a feeling this is going to be one of those deadline trades that it's not really a deadline trade. I think somebody's going to trade for him and sign him, like, immediately.
Yeah, but his qualifying offer is $10 million next season. Like, he's...
Yeah, but that's why I think somebody's going to sign him immediately, is to try to avoid that.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. It'll be... I'm really excited to see what San Jose does coming up to the deadline, because they have the two biggest pieces available.
Yeah, 100%.
And then wrapping things up with Anaheim. Just disappointing season for them all around. They're in full-on Bedard mode. John Klingberg's maybe going to get them a second-round pick from a dumb team who thinks right-handed defensemen are worth it by default.
Yeah.
But, I mean, that's one of those situations where, like, it doesn't really matter. It would have been nice for Anaheim to maybe get a first for him if he'd have played well, but it's just not happening.
Whatever. It's a free asset for them.
Yeah, so who cares? Like, the core is nice. The core is actually nice. Like, Zegras, Drysdale, McTavish, eventually Lucas Dostal, and then whoever they get this year, hopefully for their sake, it's a top 3 pick. There's a very good chance it will be a top 3 pick.
Awesome prospects coming.
Olin Zellweger is going to be an absolute beast. I'm not terribly sure who else they have. What's his name?
I don't know how to pronounce it, but yes. The guy who just got traded to the 67.
I want to say it's like Mintyukov or something.
I think it's close to Michkov. Not gonna lie. Like I think
there's a T. It's Mintyukov. Mintyukov, and he was traded to the 67s, right?
Yeah.
Pavel Mintyukov. That's what we're gonna go with.
Sure.
He was drafted 10th overall. That's crazy that Anaheim only had the 10th pick last year. Like you'd think that they'd have had like a top 5 pick. But they're gonna have a top 5 pick this year. So hopefully they can get things turned around soon. I'm really excited to see what Zegras gets on his contract. I think he's RFA at the end of the year, similar to Caulfield.
I think so.
So that'll be fascinating. And so that's it for the West. We're creeping up on an hour here. I don't know if we've gone longer. Does it tell you how long it's been?
Yeah, an hour and 1 minute. Look at us go.
Okay, so we're going to wrap here. We usually try to keep it under an hour. This was sort of a special exception because we're still sort of getting back in the loop. Tuesday, we'll be back to a regular sort of reactionary pod to the preceding days. So we didn't even get to talk about some of the stuff that happened last night in the hockey games that actually took place. We're still sort of just giving our reviews of the teams so far in the season. But, Ryan, unless you have anything else, I think that'll do it for this sort of Western Conference sort of catch-up episode.
Yeah, like you said, it was just kind of us catching up this last couple episodes on the last month or so, and we're going to get right back into the swing of things here coming up this week. So, exciting times.
There it is. So catch us tonight. Pod should be posted by tonight. And we'll be back Tuesday for episode 3. No one said play the outro. Ryan took that upon himself. And put it back on. You're good. Play the outro. Okay. I was gonna wrap it up there. And catch us on episode 3 on Tuesday.